don't. And you shake their hand and you smile and you step to the side and you listen. That is a firm difference from turning around and staring at a little black girl and saying, shut up, I'll talk to you later. You're being rude, or allowing people to say that to her. I'm gonna tell you, the proof is in the pudding every time. If I can find a picture of you from 51 years ago, chained to a black woman, protesting segregation, and I know 51 years later, you're willing to fold your arms, hold your head, and listen to two black girls yell and scream, rightfully so, as opposed to someone who will tell you to shut up after they read their own words, as opposed to someone who will tell you later, when it comes to your children dying in the streets. I know that the only person that I have the conscience to vote for is Bernard Sanders. I know that the only person that my logical, beautiful black mind will allow me to vote for is Senator Bernie Sanders. And I want to tell the other side, I know from going around and shaking hands and hugging these beautiful black faces in South Carolina, that goddamn firewall got a crack in it. I introduce you to the next president of the United States of America, Bernard Sanders.
Thank you all very much. Thank you very much for being out here today, and let me thank Representative Bamberg and Senator Nina Turner and Killer Mike for their calm and quiet introductions. And I want to just, with Killer Mike here, you know, Killer Mike is not a killer, he is a killer with. I want to thank you for taking the message of social and racial justice to young African Americans, young whites, young Latinos. That's what you've been doing for years. I very much appreciate all that you're doing. We came to South Carolina from a state far, far away where it gets a little bit colder than it does here. You may want to visit us in the summertime, not necessarily in the wintertime. And when we came here to South Carolina, we knew very few people. That's the simple truth. And the very first polls that were out there had us at like 5% or 7%. But in the last 9 months, we have come a very long way because of your support, and we appreciate it very much. And I also want to thank, in addition to Representative Bamberg and Senator Turner and Killer Mike, I want to thank strong advocates for racial justice that have been on our team. Ben Jealous, you know, is the former head of the National NAACP. Dr. Cornel West. People know Cornel West? Cornel West is one of the important intellectuals in our country. Representative Keith Ellison, co-chair of the House Progressive Caucus. Danny Glover. You all know Danny Glover? You know, we have a young Danny Glover on our campaign, but Danny Glover, the actor, is not just an actor, and I hope you all know that. He has spent his entire career fighting for social justice, and we appreciate that. Harry Belafonte. How many of you guys remember Harry Belafonte? I've known of Harry Belafonte ever since I was a kid. He's, again, an example of somebody who's not just an extraordinary singer and actor, but he has been involved in the fight for peace and racial and social justice his whole life. And anybody here hear the ad that Spike Lee did for us? And Spike Lee is one of the great film producers in America. So many great films, and I want to thank Representative Joe Neal and Terry Alexander for their support as well. Look, let me make it kind of brief. Our country today faces very, very serious problems. That's the truth. Everybody agree? Yeah. Okay. And I think, and the reason that I'm running for president is that I believe that it's just too late for establishment politics and establishment economics and the same old, okay? Now, when we live in a country which is the wealthiest country in the history of the world, but when African-American youth unemployment for high school kids, you know what it is? It is 51%. 51%. You know what African-American child poverty in this country is? It is 35%. When we are living in a country where many of you who are going to college are going to leave school deeply in debt. Is that the case? Yes. All right, you know, we got to do something about that. And not only do we have to make sure that young people are not suffocated with outrageous levels of student debt, we should be making public colleges and universities tuition free. We should be providing substantial help to historically black colleges and universities who are doing a great job educating young people. So what this campaign is about is taking a hard look at national priorities. When we have 20 of the wealthiest people in this country owning more wealth than the bottom 50% of America, 150 million people. Anyone here think that's right? And then we got Republicans who want to give hundreds of billions of dollars in tax breaks to the top 1%. Doesn't make sense to me. So this is what I think. I think for a start that when we have a lot of people in this country working for $9 or $10 an hour, people here think you can get by on $9 or $10 an hour? No. So what do you think? Think we should raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour? All right, now let me say a word to the ladies here. Ladies. All right, nationally, women earn 79 cents on the dollar compared to men. African-American women actually earn even less than that. Who thinks that's right? All right, guys, you're gonna stand with the women and fight for pay equity for women workers? All right, ladies, you got some allies, and you hold them to that. Don't let them double-cross you here. All right, here's the story about unemployment. We have too much unemployment in this country, all right? We need to create millions of good-paying jobs. Now, how are we going to do that? Well, we are going to hire teachers, not fire teachers. And I hope some of you here will give thought to going into teaching, because we need great teachers in this country. All right. And others, I hope, will give thought to going into child care work. We need well-paid, well-trained child care workers so that the littlest children in this country get the start in life that they need, all right? Now, let me tell you a story, if I might. I was in Flint, Michigan, just the other day. Everybody here know what's going on in Flint, Michigan? You don't know what's going on in Flint, Michigan, because it is worse than you think it is. Okay, it is beyond belief worse than you think it is. When you hear what the people of Flint are saying, as I did, you would say, wait a minute, what country am I living in? Am I really living in the United States of America in the year 2016, where just broke? Okay, there it is. My electrifying personality. All right. Flint, Michigan, I want you to imagine this for 1 minute. We talked to a mother. Mother has, I believe, a 9-year-old child. 9-year-old child, she said, couple of years ago, this kid was doing really well in school, outgoing, vivacious. 2 years later, because of lead poisoning, that little girl's intellectual development has been significantly diminished. And right now, as I understand it, she's in special education. Now, can you imagine the mother watching this taking place to your own baby, your own kid? And on it goes. People are paying in Flint, Michigan, $150, $200 a month for water, which is poisoning them. You got a school system which is totally inadequate, a healthcare system which is totally inadequate. This is taking place in the United States of America. Now, the reason I'm running for president is I am prepared to take on Wall Street, to take on the big money interests who today are doing so much harm to our country. Now, let me give you an example. Question. Somebody give me an answer. Somebody today in South Carolina gets picked up for possessing marijuana, okay? What happens? Well, you may go to jail, you may go to what? You got a police record, right? Question number two. You're a Wall Street executive whose greed and illegal behavior helped destroy the American economy, caused millions of people their jobs, their homes, and their life savings. What happens to you? You get a wage, you get a salary increase is what happens to you. You don't get a jail record. And that speaks to a broken criminal justice system. You know what I mean by that? All right, this is a broken criminal justice system when some kid gets a police record. What happens when you get a police record? It's kind of hard to go out and get a job, right? All right, so the kid gets a police record, but the executive on Wall Street gets off scot-free. By the way, after reaching a settlement with the government for $5 billion. All right, and when we talk about criminal justice, what about the need for police department reform? What about that? All right. Absolutely. All right. Why do we have in America, and help me out here, why do we have more people in jail than any other country on earth? Well, we have more people in jail for a number of reasons, but one of the reasons, and by the way, as you all know, people in jail disproportionately African American, Latino, and Native Americans. All right, we got over-policing. Let me give you an example about over-policing. It turns out that whites and blacks smoke marijuana at about equal rates. That's the fact. Blacks are more than 4 times more likely to be arrested for marijuana than whites. Okay, now you know what I think about marijuana? Marijuana is today part of the Federal Controlled Substance Act. It's a federal crime. It is listed right alongside of heroin. Does that make sense to people? No. All right, so we are going to take marijuana out of the Federal Controlled Substance Act, so it is not a federal crime. Now, states can make it legal or not, but it should not be a federal crime. Now, what we're also going to do is the following, is if somebody, when they are being arrested, is killed by a police officer or dies while they are in police custody, in every instance, we are going to have a Federal Department of Justice investigation. And if a police officer, and I'm a former mayor, and I've worked hard with police officers, and most police officers are honest and hardworking guys. But if a police officer breaks the law, that police officer must be held accountable. Second of all, we're going to demilitarize local police departments so they do not look like occupying armies. The function of a police department is to serve the people, not to be an oppressive force in the community. They're part of the community, not to oppress the people. Thirdly, we need great young people, by the way, to think about getting into law enforcement, because we need police departments around this country to look like the diversity of the communities they are serving. Fourth, we're going to do away with minimal sentencing. A lot of people get sentenced for too long terms because judges don't have the flexibility they should have. Fifth, we are going in this country and in my state, all over America, we have a very serious problem with drugs, with opiates, and with alcohol. What we have got to understand is that substance abuse is a health issue, not a criminal issue. In other words, people who are addicted and are trapped in drugs or alcohol need health care to get off of that addiction, not to be jailed. That makes sense to people? And when people are arrested and go to jail, one of the tragedies in this country is many of them, when they leave jail, end up back in jail. And they end up back in jail because they don't have the job training, they don't have the education that they need to go out and become part of civil society. So we have got to make sure. I'll tell you a story. I was in Iowa, talked to a guy. He was arrested, spent time in jail. They said to him, when he was released, here's a check for $75, good luck. Well, he ended up back in jail. We have too many people going that pipeline in and out. So we are going to make sure that people have the education and the jobs they need when they go back into society so they don't come back into jail. And by the way, when youth unemployment for high school kids are white, 33%, Latino, 36%, African American, 51%. Now we got two choices. We could either build more jails and arrest more people, that's one choice. I think that's a stupid choice. Or else we can put money into education and jobs. You know, it turns out that it costs less money to send a kid to the University of South Carolina than it does to send them in jail. I'd rather send them to the University of South Carolina, or any other college for that matter. All right? Now, what goes on in this country is we have a corrupt campaign finance system. Everybody know what I mean by that? What I mean by that is you have one vote, which I hope you will exercise on Saturday, tomorrow. You got one vote. But there are other people in this country, they got one vote, but you know what else they got? They have hundreds of millions of dollars to try to buy elections. Does that sound like democracy to anybody in this room? That's not democracy, that's called oligarchy, ruled by the rich and the powerful. Now, one of the reasons we have that is because of a disastrous Supreme Court decision on Citizens United. Together, we're going to overturn Citizens United. One person, one vote. I want to tell you something else. Now, I know I date myself. I am old, I confess. Thank you. Well, you know, you can love me. I'm lovable, but I still am old, you know. Back in 1963, long time ago, I was there for the March on Washington with Dr. Martin Luther King, okay? And all of you know, everybody knows, that what the struggle was about was for voting rights. That everybody in America, no matter what the color of your skin in America, has the right to vote. In 1965, President Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act, a major breakthrough in this country. But a year ago, there was a Supreme Court decision that undermined a lot of the Voting Rights Act. And now you have governors and legislatures all over this country. And you know what they're trying to do? They're trying to make it harder for people to vote. For poor people, for elderly people, for people of color. I think that is cowardly, and I will tell you why. Because they are afraid of a free and fair election. They don't want people who might vote against them to participate in the political process. So I believe that if somebody is running for office or somebody's a governor and they don't have the guts to allow a free and fair election, you know what I think? I think they should get another job and get out of politics. I don't want to see people waiting online. You see those pictures? Miami, Florida, or someplace, people waiting online 4 hours to vote? We know what that's about. So my view is, if you're 18 years of age in the United States of America and you're a citizen of this country, you have the right to vote. End of discussion. We're going to make it easier for people to vote, not harder for people to vote. Now, one of the differences between Secretary Clinton and myself, and you'll have to make this evaluation and think it through. I do not have a super PAC. I do not raise millions of dollars from Wall Street or powerful special interests. We have, the way we raise our money is we receive 4 million individual contributions. 4 million, that's more than anybody in history at this point in a campaign. You know what the average contribution is? It's $27. Secretary Clinton has a super PAC, receives, last filing period, $15 million from Wall Street. I think that that's wrong. I want to touch on another issue. Trade issue, not a sexy issue, very important. South Carolina, devastated by NAFTA. You know what that means? It means that corporations in this country, they say, why do I want to pay a worker in South Carolina 15 or 20 bucks an hour? I can shut down the plant, I can move that plant to Mexico or China, and then I bring my product back in this country. That has devastated the South, and in fact, it has devastated states all over this country. We have lost millions of decent paying jobs. You know what I think? I think it's time for corporations who want us to buy their products to start manufacturing their products here in the United States of America. Create decent paying jobs here. Now there's another issue. And I know on this issue people may disagree with me, but let me throw it out. All of us know that there are terrible, terrible crimes committed. We see it every day in the papers. Some lunatic goes out and starts shooting up people. And we get angry. And we say, I want that person executed, I want that person killed. But I want to tell you something. I am opposed to the death penalty. Not everybody agrees with me. Secretary Clinton does not agree with me. All right, but I want to tell you why I am opposed to it. Number one, if you look at our history, there are a lot of innocent people, often people of color, who were executed, and then we found out years later they were not guilty. Number two, we have so much ugliness and so much violence in our society that I just don't think that the government should be involved in that violence and should be killing people. So what I think, and I know people disagree with me because we get angry and we see people do terrible things and we say, we want to kill them, we want vengeance. But vengeance is not the answer. People do something terrible, lock them up, throw away the key. Keep them behind bars. We don't want dangerous people out on the streets. But I do not believe that government should be involved in the taking of lives. Last point that I want to make. In politics, of which I know a little bit about, it is very easy to get votes by scapegoating minorities. Now, it's a very easy thing to do. Right now, we're seeing it on the Republican side. We're seeing Donald Trump telling us that we're supposed to think that all the people from Mexico came into this country are rapists or criminals or drug dealers. All of you know that that is nonsense, and we're not going to succumb to that type of bigotry. And then there's also, we're supposed to keep Muslims out of this country. And that's what it's always about. We play off one group against the other. White against black, native-born against people who came into this country. Okay, we're not going to do that. But I want to talk to you about what happened in 1996. There was a bill, that was a long time ago, I know, but there was a bill called the so-called Welfare Reform Bill. And the thesis, the idea behind that is that poor people were ripping off the welfare system. So they made major changes in it. The end result of that legislation was that extreme poverty, I'm talking about the poorest of the poor, I'm talking about children who are hungry, extreme poverty in this country, the rates doubled because of that legislation. I vigorously opposed that legislation. Secretary Clinton supported that legislation. That's an important difference between us. All right, let me just end by thanking you all for coming out and for saying this. I know that a lot of your friends, if you're young people, they think you're crazy to go to a political event. Am I correct? They're saying, get a life. What are you doing wasting an afternoon going to a Bernie Sanders event? And by the way, who is Bernie Sanders anyhow? All right, I understand that. But I want to say this very profoundly. I work in the United States Senate. That's my job. I see what goes on there. Now, if you don't want to leave school deeply in debt, if you want to get a job that pays you a living wage, if you're a woman and you want to earn equal pay, if you're concerned about climate change, if you're concerned about a criminal justice system, if you don't vote and your friends don't vote, who do you think is going to pay attention to those issues? Do you think that billionaire campaign contributors are going to be worried that women in South Carolina are trying to raise their kids on $8 or $9 an hour? Do you think they're staying up nights worrying about that? Do you think they're staying up nights worrying that we have a broken criminal justice system? They're not. The only people who are going to make the change. The history of America, whether it is the workers' rights movement, the civil rights movement, the women's movement, the gay rights movement, what is it about? It's people at the grassroots standing up and demanding change. It's always from the bottom on up, never from the top on down. And that's what this campaign is about. It is saying that it is wrong in America when so few have so much and so many have so little. That we are the only major country on earth that doesn't guarantee health care to all people. That we don't have paid family and medical leave. That we don't have a minimum wage, which is a living wage. There is a lot of work to do. No president can do it alone. We need a political revolution. Are you guys ready to join in that revolution? All right, that's what it's about. And if we don't allow Trump and his friends to try to divide us up, if we stand together, we can do extraordinary things. Think big of what this country can become. So I want to thank you all very much. Welcome to the political revolution. Make sure you vote tomorrow. Thank you all very much. My wife, Jane, the brains of the family.
Well, hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us. That was a last-minute broadcast. Had no idea that stream was coming. Found that on Twitter, I believe. Bernie Sanders live in Orangeburg, South Carolina. And more than 200 of you watching right now. Thank you so much for being here. I didn't catch the very beginning of that, but it's on C-SPAN. If you go to C-SPAN video, just search Bernie Sanders. It's pretty easy. They got a nice system there, and you can find this. It's just ending right now. And you catch the full beginning that has Killer Mike and a very nice testimony and introduction. So if you want to do that, I suggest you go there. This version here, I apologize to everybody that was watching, and the mouse cursor was on the screen the whole time. That was my bad. Apologies. Again, this was totally unexpected. I just came in and was like, oh shit, there's a broadcast. So thank you for being here. If we find a feed for the next one, we'll push it up and join each other in conversation and talk about that stuff and watch the next Bernie rally. I hear he's somewhere else tonight, and I know we have people waiting for that. So thank you for being here. I suppose we could go out with a tune if we want to. Might as well, right? It's up to you guys. Actually, nah. Yeah, let's go out with a tune. Let's go out with Bernie Sanders. Let's just do Bernie Sanders' new ad. I don't know if you've seen this. This is his new People Before Polluters, which I think is rather fitting considering what's going on in Flint right now, which is, it's absolutely ridiculous. Flint, Michigan is, if we don't fix our government, Flint, Michigan is going to happen again and again. It's going to keep happening. It's going to get worse. We have to stop the establishment. We have to stop Hillary Clinton. We have to stop everyone in the establishment government. This isn't just an election cycle. This is a political revolution. Bernie's the only guy who gets it. This is his ad on People Before Polluters. We'll run this and then we'll do the standard bumper. Feel the burn, everybody. We'll see you on the next rally if we got it. If not, we'll see you tomorrow.
Bernie Sanders, the courage to stand up to big oil because he won't take their money. That's why Sanders said no to the Keystone Pipeline and never waffled. He's also the only candidate to oppose fracking because fracking can endanger our drinking water and threaten our climate. Sanders has the most far-reaching plan to fight climate change and build a clean energy future. Bernie Sanders, people before polluters.
I'm Bernie Sanders, and I approve this message.
Huge